Good afternoon. The workshop for the City Commission for Monday, July 28th will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Marine.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Ashley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Here.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here. Wanted to thank everybody for turning out tonight, and a special thanks for members of the Charter Review Committee. If you're in the room, would you stand? So several members, thank you very, very much for coming tonight. We realize that you may be seated. We realize that because of that you're still in session, have not been dismissed by the commission, that you will have a spokesman tonight, and that will be your chair. So thank you so very much. Also wanted to recognize and thank an elected official. Our supervisor of elections is here. Ms. Lewis, Lisa Lewis is here. Thank you, ma'am, for coming. We really appreciate you turning out. And so, if I might, I think I'll just set the table for what we can expect on a night of learning. The city attorney will give us some guardrails and what she needs to walk away from tonight with. Mr. Billings will present the work of the committee. Ms. Boyer will follow that with whatever we don't get out of Mr. Billings. We'll have a discussion following that. And then we'll need to get the ballot wording appropriate so that the attorney can have the accurate wording as we want it to be, with consensus on the ballot. We'll meet again in this room and vote on the proposal from the Charter Review. And I want to thank every zone commissioner for nominating what was an amazing group of folks, diverse for sure, and certainly representing the entire city. So thank you, citizens, as always, for stepping up and making New Smyrna Beach the best part is you. So we'll start with public participation. And so if anybody would like to speak on any matter concerning the charter and the charter process, our governing document, this is your time for a monologue, for you to come up and tell us what you think, tell us what you'd like to see, give us your opinion. We won't respond back and forth. And so when you come up, your name, please, and your address. You see the green light come on, you'll have 3 minutes. At 1 minute to go, you'll see the yellow light come on, and then you need to be finished at the red light. So please come forward at this time for public participation. We're delighted to hear from you. Public participation is now open. Ms. Isom.
Good afternoon. Pam Ison from the Riverside Garden District, 624 North Riverside Drive. I do not rely on Facebook, Instagram, X, or Nextdoor Neighbor to get my news, but I do look at all those social media sites. And I've read many, many times that should this proposal for these amendments go on a special ballot, that not everyone in our city would be able to vote, which we know that's not true. This is a nonpartisan issue, so it doesn't matter how you're registered, you would be able to vote on these issues.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Anyone else for public participation? Ms. Gillespie, good evening.
First of all, can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
First of all, I want to thank each one of you for making excellent choices of whom should serve on the Charter Review Committee. After the first few weeks when the committee was working on organizational matters, they settled in, and really it functioned better than I think any committee has in a long time. They were respectful of one another, they debated, they came prepared. In other words, they put together a really good package. I have to confess, having been on the former Charter Review Commission, I was all prepared to defend what I thought we had done as being the best possible product you could have, only to find that they did, in fact, improve a lot on it. I was conflicted, though, on how we should vote. And so I decided to reach out to a lot of friends, about 20 it ended up being. Should we vote, each amendment or one vote? And I expected to get some guidance because I was going both ways. Instead, all 20 did answer me, but they were divided right down the middle. And so I got to thinking, all right, we had a very, very representative group of citizens on the Charter Review Commission. They did an excellent job, conscientious about each detail. And we said to them, as a city, put together something for us and we'll vote on it. I think we should stick with that. I think we should have one vote, voted up or down. If there are too many changes you don't like, just vote against it. We still have a charter. So that makes sense to me, especially if you don't have a special election, which I hope you do not. Please, let's do this next November. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
I'm Karen Galino.
Carrie, pull that microphone right up to you. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm Karen Galino, and I'm not sure if this is the correct meeting, but I was told it would be. I moved here a couple of years ago and live over at 452 Old Mission Road. They're building behind me, and we went there to watch and to talk with the people, the building planning department. And they told me, oh, don't worry about it. You're going to get a pond behind you. And if anybody knows anything about Edgewater, anybody that lives near a pond, it floods. So I told them, well, that's not a plus for me. Put that pond someplace else. But they really didn't care. That was in their planning. So I was just wondering if anybody is really watching them. It's behind the post office, and it's behind my house. So it's that piece of land back there that used to be woods, and they're building townhomes. And as the tractor goes by, you can see their wheels with my 6-foot fence there, and they wave. It's kind of, I feel like it's like a hillbilly waving to me. But I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to flood. And is there what is the plan if we do flood? That's what I...
Thank you, ma'am. So this is not our regular city commission meeting. This is a special meeting for
Right.
the charter.
Right.
We've taken your information. If you don't mind coming back and seeing us again at the first meeting in August,
Okay.
we might have some information for you at that time. But for sure, our city engineer, the city manager, we can direct you to a website full of all of the things that we've done for flood mitigation to date and what's planned for the future. And we'll have the engineer at some point speak to that to the entire city.
Okay, so
Okay?
that's in
Thank you.
August.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Robbie, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Robbie Gibson Minor, 2839 South Oceano Court, New Smyrna Beach. And I too would like to echo Sally's sentiment about what an excellent job of selecting a diverse group with many different areas of expertise for the committee, and the outstanding job that they did and the commitment. So that is much appreciated. I mostly have a couple of questions that I hope will be answered throughout the course of this evening. The first one is, if it is 7 items, what happens, what are the repercussions if one or more do not pass? So what's the next step? The other one is the cost of a special election. Is that still around $48,000 if it is a November election? And the voter turnout. And in the committee, one of the cons was that it would be only about 10% typically is what it has been. And I looked up the Volusia County Supervisors of Election website, and I shall stand to be corrected if this data is incorrect. But in August of 2024, the primary, 7,087 voters out of our 24,747 registered voters voted. In the November election, and of course it was a presidential election, so more people, almost 20,000 voters voted. And that was 79%. In August of 2022, there were more voters, almost 10,000. And in the November election, there were fewer, 13,000. But with nothing else on the ballot, what will be attracted to have people most represented? And if you decide to do that, how are you going to get the word out to make sure everybody knows they need to get their mail-in ballots or be at the polls on that day? So to really get the word out to get participation. And then one question about salaries. I think everybody, elected officials and our city employees, should be compensated fairly, equitably, and competitively. So I'm all for increases in salaries if it is something that the budget will allow. I also understand how difficult it is to vote on your own salary increase. But do you want to be tied to another governmental body in the budgeting process? Are there other ways to look at it? Cost of living, looking at comps in comparable cities. So I would just ask that perhaps that might be looked at in a different way. And I'm done.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation? Ms. Sneesiak.
Hi, like it's two E's, Sneezak. Good evening. Thank you, Commission, for holding this workshop, and thanks to the committee, the Charter Committee, for all the work that they had done. And I have to commend whoever on staff put together that 38-minute video that is hung on the city's website with like a fast forward through all the conversation, the points made back and forth. It was outstanding, really. It was fair, it was balanced, and it was accurate. So if the commendations can go forward to that person, it was awesome. The salary thing, let me start with that. There was a lot of conversation at the charter review about paying a living wage, et cetera. You know, that just didn't sit right with me, and I'm afraid it won't sit right with the electorate as well. I know that you serve because this is your desire to do public service. That doesn't mean that you should end up paying office expenses, and you don't. I think the city reimburses for that, or at least can provide the supplies for that. You can apply for mileage, which is perfectly appropriate as well. You are all entitled to benefits, although those benefits never really came up in the Charter Review Commission, which I find awkward. So if you're going to consider salary, I think it needs to be a complete review of payments. And the other is, I think it is a mistake to fix it entirely to the county for two reasons. Not just the increase, which I, again, think that's going to be a difficult sell. But the issue with that is the county is trying to get themselves tagged directly to the state legislature. So there's an unintended consequence, potentially, by having it written in stone that you, as a body, should be paid 75%. So as that changes, the charter says you follow it. And I really didn't hear conversation at the charter review about that. My main concern is that the first two items on your agenda deal with how long someone is in office as a mayor and how somebody gets into office. And as a voter, I think that takes some power away from me. The most compelling reason not to change the mayoral term to 4 years is it keeps the right with the voter to change the majority of the commission every election. because there are no term limits, and because the incumbent always has a large advantage, that's not something I'm willing to give up without getting term limits, strict term limits in exchange. And also the 50 plus 1%, I don't know why the commission is undoing what the last charter review people did in 2020. So I'd like to hear conversation about that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Sachs.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Leslie Sachs, 816 East 8th Avenue. And again, I also would like to thank you for your hard work and listening to the people. And this was a great commission board, so I'm echoing all that. But as it stands now, I would have to vote no on 4 of these items, and I'll explain. The 4-year mayoral term takes away the power of the people, which was just mentioned, to change the commission by majority every 2 years. The only way I and everyone I spoke with would vote yes would be term limits, because this shouldn't be a coronation. The charter review, this was brought up, in fact, I brought it up at one of the charter review board meetings, and they said that wasn't that important, not to me, but it was mentioned that it wasn't an important item, term limits. However, everyone I speak to is like, why aren't there term limits? Other cities have had them. Also, nomination and elected after primary, I'm not for, because it takes away the time that people have to vet and study the remaining 2 candidates. An educated voter is a good voter. Commission salary, a hard no. This is too big of an amount. The ballot language doesn't state the current percentage amount. The new amount is 25% more than the current amount. They already get 3% every year with the cost of living, plus they get free insurance and pension and gasoline benefits. This is public service, not public gouging. I'm not totally against a minor raise, but this just sounds greedy to me. At least 10 other cities I've looked up in the computer get paid a lot less. Also, I agree with Ms. Cizak that we shouldn't be tied to the county due to unintended consequences. We could always vote a raise by referendum. And the review should not be at least once every 10 years. At least it means at the whim, it could be changed at great expense. For example, this one should not have happened until next year with the election and not causing the city to spend $48,000 tax dollars for a special election. This should be rewarded to coincide with any election every 8 years with stricter language to prevent what is happening now. And one more thing, I think the voting roll call should be totally random. The mayor should not have the advantage of always being last. All votes count equally. No one should have an edge on final count, misleading when someone votes against something that they might really be for it because of a 3-2 final result. Total randomness is the only fair way. And again, I'd like to thank you for separating all the changes on the ballot. The previous charter was voted with 1 vote. No one knew all the changes they were voting on. So, like I said before, an educated voter is a smart voter. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Dr. Herman.
Good evening. I decided I've been pondering about how the ballot should be set up because I think it is a challenge because of the issues. And I decided to get modern, so I went on ChatGPT and I asked for their wisdom, and they said they wrote pros and cons for both ways, and I thought they might be helpful as you work tonight. The pro for the single vote, yes, no, is that it's easier to present and to explain. It may be faster and less expensive to implement, and voters don't have to parse multiple items. The cons against a yes-no vote is that it forces voters to accept or reject the entire package, even if they support some parts. And 2, it can lead to rejection if some of the items are controversial. The itemized voting, they say the pro is it gives voters much more granular control. It increases perceived fairness and transparency. It reduces the risk of rejection due to an unpopular provision. The cons against itemizing is that it's more complex for the election administration, it can confuse or overwhelm voters if there are too many options, and the risk of inconsistent outcomes could occur. Overall, they said best practices, if the changes are few and distinct, that itemizing is the good way to go. If the changes are interdependent or numerous, then consider grouping them and allowing a yes/no vote. They said ensure you use clear, plain language, hold public forums, as we are having, and they recommend that the vote should coincide with the general election. So I just thought those might be helpful as you debate, and I'm so glad we're doing this because it's an important
Thank you,
process.
sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation? Mr. Romero.
Let's see, I want to thank Mr. Eisen, Mr. Foulisier, Mr. Billings, Mr. Groker, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Smith, Ms. Draker, and Ms. Poole. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Those are the members of the committee that were here. Yes, I was here quite a bit, and I watched them debate all these items. You've been a lot today about the pros and the cons and the yes and the no's and the 4 to 2 and all that kind of stuff there. But I want to focus on one item that hasn't been spoken about today that may not get a lot of attention, and it should. It's to add 6.05 to our articles on our charter. Why is that important? I feel that 6.05 is a lifeline of this community. We are a residential tourist town. Our money comes from tourism. Our money comes from bands, from festivals, jazz festival, rock festival, blues festival, harmonica championships, all the ones that come here for the weekend, for the week. Families come from all over the world to Disparity for that purpose here, to have fun. I sat here in this room where the Shark Bite half marathon was almost not done because of issues they had there. Fortunately, it was done. I sat here where images also was part of an issue at one time. But if we put that into our constitution of our charter, that we should and we need to for the vital survival of our city for the future, not today, for the future, to put that into our charter so we can have the city, and our charter says that we have to help and enhance and promote what we have today here, which we want to keep. That's why I moved here. I moved here because of festivals. Every time I come up here for look around, jazz festival, rock festival, this festival, bars here, bands here, all over the place. People tell me they come here for that purpose. On the weekends, Flagler and Canal, they do great jobs. It gets packed in there. It's hard to find a seat. We have great restaurants. But if we don't enhance that, if we don't focus on that as a city to say we cannot get rid of that, because later on in 5, 10 years, you may not be here, all of you. And they say, I don't like the loud music anymore. I don't like this kind of stuff. I don't like that kind of stuff there. And it goes away. But what goes away is our money, is the money to the city. It's our vitality to our city and the economics there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation?
Good evening, all. Joe Dluvac, Venetian Bay. Just wanted to, I'm not going to say what people have said about the 2 versus 4. To me, that represents you're usurping the authority of the guy that Kevin put at the top of the organizational charts, and that's called the citizen. As far as the salary, have no issue with the procedure, the percentages, or whatever, but the recommendation that it should be total compensation, not just salary. Who knows what goes on behind the doors, and we want to make sure that that's consistent. What I'd really like to talk about is the frustration that we sense as citizens, as I do. Not being a political science, I'm not sure where the charter starts and the comp plan begins, but the city has some real problems now that aren't addressed, and I don't know how to do that. Has to do with flooding, has to do with communications between the city and its residents and its citizens, as Mr. Ashley pointed out, and with how we're monitoring the developments that are going on. I said many times before you that we fell down, we collectively fell down with Venetian Bay. We fell down with one. How are we going to do 3 of them if we don't change something? And I don't know where that starts. I don't know what document it comes in. Hopefully, if I say that often enough, we'll find a place to grab. But the other things we keep hearing and talking about in social media are the historic trees, conservation areas. The list kind of goes on, and I don't know quite how to fit that into a document like the charter, but you guys get paid the big bucks, so try to figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. I'd like to at least start with our city attorney to put up the guardrails of where we're going and kind of lay it out for us a little bit. Madam City Attorney, if you don't mind.
Yes, just to recap where we are, the Charter Review Committee began in April. It ended earlier this month. 7 questions arose out of that. You will hear from Mr. Billings and Ms. Boyer about the content of that. And then once we get through that, I have 7 different ordinances drafted with questions for each of those 7 topics. We're limited by state law, 15 words for the title, 75 words for the question. I've already spotted something I would change on the 4-year mayoral term, but I'm looking for that feedback from everyone and whether we stick with 7 different ordinances or if there is an appetite for a single ordinance. But I would recommend 7 different ordinances.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
Would you, for the record, comment on what the source of the 7 topics that were brought up and became topics of discussion by the committee? There seemed to be some discussion about that. Wanted to make sure that was certainly clear to the residents, where the residents who served, where they got those 7 ideas.
So some of them, originally at our very first meeting, we were going to end early, but we thought there's a limited number of meetings. So I had given the charter review facilitator just things I had heard in the community, whether it's at the dais or from commission or staff. And then after that, what they did is they went through each article and said, okay, do you have any questions for Article 1, Article 2? You know, so thereafter they went through each article.
Gotcha. Thank you. So appreciate that. So I'd like to remind us all that there's no voting tonight. This is not the end. We will consider this again at a regularly scheduled commission meeting. It's a night for understanding and for learning. And so with that, this is the first time our commission have heard the Charter Review's conclusion of their body of work. So we're hearing it the same time you are for the very first time. And with that, its chair, Mr. Billings, would you please come up? We're anxious to hear your report, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. Please allow me to thank each of you for your service and leadership in our great community of New Smyrna Beach, Florida. My name is Mark Billings. I reside at 128 Mangrove Estates Circle in New Smyrna Beach. Additionally, I'm the Executive Director of the Southeast Volusia Habitat for Humanity affiliate and current Chair of the Southeast Volusia Chamber of Commerce Board. I was afforded the privilege of representing the Commissioner Jason McGirt from Zone 3 on the New Smyrna Beach Charter Review Committee. It is my honor to have been nominated and selected by my fellow members to serve as the chair of the committee. It is in this capacity that you will hear me make several recommendations to you for your consideration this evening. At a starting point of emphasis, it is that this committee is a group of 11 residents in our great town that reflect what we believe to be in the best interest of our community and our wonderful neighbors that call New Smyrna Beach home. Please allow me to publicly thank the 10 individuals on the committee who leaned in, came to the meetings prepared, asked thought-provoking questions, and challenged points of view until we had a collective understanding of, again, what we believe to be appropriate edits to our current city charter that will improve the quality of life for our neighbors. These exceptional 10 colleagues of mine are Steve Fusilier, Spencer Hathaway, Michael Eisen, Farley Palmer, Diana Poole, Judy Riker, Khalid Rashidad, Daniel Roker, Sandra Smith, and Palmer Wilson. Also, our committee facilitator, Susan Boyer, who kept us aligned for the purpose of the body of work. You have before you this evening a total of 8 recommendations to consider for approval. It is important for me to highlight that these recommendations are presented to you as a collective proposal of the Charter Review Committee that represents all 4 zones in our great city. 7 of these recommendations are modifications to the language in our current charter. The 8th recommendation for your consideration is to agree to hold a special election with these proposed enhancements on the ballot. Now, I will provide context for our thinking regarding the 7 proposals, beginning with sections 2.02 and 3.06, where we are recommending a modification of the term of the mayor from 2 to 4 years. The change from 2 to 4 years will align with the zone commissioners, afford the mayor additional time to gain experience, and thus the energy and time of the mayor will be better served with issues of our community and fewer days spent managing an election campaign. The second recommended refinement to our current charter pertains to section 3.05. We are proposing that a winner is declared in the primary election if a commissioner or mayoral candidate receives 50 plus 1 votes, that no further need for a general election will occur. This will be physically more responsible and again allow more time for the candidates or sitting officials to focus on more important issues within our city. The third proposed shift in our charter is to modify sections 2.03, 2.05, 4.01, 4.02, and 4.03 and adjust the city clerk reporting accountability to city manager rather than a charter officer. We discovered in our research that this organizational structure is what is most consistent with other municipalities and affords the city clerk with 1 direct supervisor instead of 5, as is the case now. The fourth proposed improvement is from section 2.11, pertaining to the compensation of the commissioners and mayor. The committee is proposing the mayor of New Smyrna Beach receive compensation of 75% of the chair of the Volusia County Council, and each commissioner of New Smyrna receives 75% of the mayor's salary. Our thinking is this provides clarity, puts the compensation at a fair rate compared to other like municipalities, and removes the current language and now establishes specific parameters and guidelines. The fifth proposed edit to the charter is specific history preservation notes in 6.03. The current language in this section was considered in need of some narrative improvements where the emphasis on property rights is maintained. Our committee agrees that it is vitally important to assist private owners of historic properties as they contribute to our rich history in New Smyrna Beach. Also, we agree the city should continue to financially support city properties that have a historical designation. The sixth proposal was to create a new section as 6.05. We are proposing that we galvanize our commitment to arts and culture by promoting the continuation of such events and venues for our residents. We felt this lines with our broad community elegance in New Smyrna Beach. The seventh proposed edit pertains to Charter Section 7.03. The committee is suggesting the language become more flexible for the commission to review the charter. The requirement of 10 years remains, but our proposal allows for review as needed or desired by the commission. The final proposal is contingent upon your selection of any or all of the prior 7 items. Our committee feels that the proposed changes, if approved by you, should be placed on a special ballot at the next opportunity as to give the residents of our wonderful community the opportunity to be heard and share in support of moving New Smyrna forward for the next 10 years and beyond. I will close by saying it has been a true honor to serve as the chair of the New Smyrna Beach Charter Review Committee. I simply cannot thank my committee colleagues enough for their support and engagement. We should all be proud of the public that showed up to participate in each meeting and sharing perspectives that we valued and considered in our proposal. Finally, I'm personally proud of a town where residents from across all zones work together to improve our hometown. After hours of thoughtful discussion and dialogue, the committee respectfully requests your consideration and approval for the 7 charter adjustments and moving forward with a special consideration. On behalf of our entire committee, I sincerely appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. Appreciate your diligence there. Questions for Mr. Billings?
Just a statement.
Go ahead, sir.
Mark, I want to thank you for doing an exceptional job as chair and appreciate you coming here tonight and briefing us on your findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGurk.
Yeah, I have a
Commissioner Ashley.
I echo the thanks from Jason. Just wondered, did term limits ever come up? The discussion of term limits?
I don't recall that it specifically came up as an item, but I'd have to reference the notes for that. But as I recall, I don't believe we specifically had dialogue around term limits. No, sir.
That's all.
Really good. Commissioner Martin?
Well, I don't think Mark can answer most of my questions, so I'm fine with that. I have just general charter questions.
Okay. Commissioner Perry.
I want to just echo the gratitude I have for such a diverse group coming together and hammering all this out. I watched and either was at the meetings or watched them, and I was just very impressed at the professionalism each of you displayed, so thank you for that. My question is, and we received a little packet for the benefits provided to the mayor and the commission board, and it spells out by city, which is very helpful. And I was wondering what I didn't see, and I can't remember if you discussed this or not, but I believe that the mayor's terms for Port Orange, Edgewater, Daytona, DeLand, Deltona, Holly Hill, those are already 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. There's only a couple that's 2 years like we have it. Is that correct?
You're correct. As I recall, we had all but 2. We're one of the 2 that it's currently not 4 years for the mayor. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In Volusia County.
I thought that, and when you didn't mention it in your little summary, I just wanted to verify that. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Great question. Thank you.
Very good. A couple of these, Mark. Maybe you can answer this, and maybe the supervisor election. Has there ever been a time when all 3 were voted out in one election in your history, where 3 that were up, the mayor and 2 commissioners, which happens every 2 years now? Have there ever been a time that you remember they were voted out, all 3?
From my personal memory, I don't recall that. I don't recall us actually discussing and reviewing that information, but I'm sure it's available. In my time living in the community, and I've been around a long time, I don't ever recall that.
I had heard that was the reason. I've heard I can't remember which of the citizens said, hey, I heard, and it kind of made sense to me, but I just wondered, if you don't like what's going on, get rid of the majority and find new people. But I just didn't know if it had ever happened.
It came up a couple times during public comments during our committee sessions. The data, I'm not sure if it was reviewed by staff, but we did not discuss the occurrence of that ever happening, and it was never presented to our committee at a time which it did in fact occur.
Any chance we get help from the supervisor of elections? Ms. Lewis, do you have any records or any indications? Can you come up and tell us if you do?
Good evening. Lisa Lewis, Supervisor of Elections, and I do not recall it ever happening with any commission, any council in Volusia County since I have been supervisor, and I even worked there 10 years before I became supervisor. Now, without looking at all the results from over all the years, I can't tell you 100%, but I do not recall it ever happening.
Gotcha. Just one more. Are there other cities of the 16 cities in Volusia that have a different term for the mayor from the commissioners? Different terms like,
No, you are the only one that has a difference between the
No
mayor
other
and the
city has
commission.
a
No,
mayor
they're
does
either
too, the
two-year
commission-
all across the
got
board
it.
or four.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So there are some that are two?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Would you, let's go down the row here. Can you enlighten us on the third topic, which was the city clerk discussion, walking away from our current setup and going toward a city clerk that works for the manager? How'd you come to that conclusion?
So we did some research and referenced several municipalities within the county and within the state, and in large part, we discovered that the city clerk was a staff member that reported in to either the city manager or the assistant city manager and was not a charter member.
Got it.
We were more of an outlier than we were aligned with other cities in that regard.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate that. We go back up one on the nomination election. Can you recall, I know you may have done the research, was there a time when somebody that won the primary, mayor or commissioner, lost the general election? Won the primary by over 50%, or received over 50% in the primary and actually lost in the general election? Was there a time?
That was not presented as such, but my sense would be that would never have been the case.
I'm
We
not
don't-
sure. Supervisor election may know that.
Being that you are the only city in Volusia County, or in this state that I know of, that requires the top two to move on, no one, if they've won 50% plus one out of three or more candidates, they won. There's no need for them to move on to the general to lose. So,
Okay.
I mean,
We're alone there.
you are,
Okay,
yes.
thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. I'm fascinated with the idea of the addition of arts and culture to the charter. As I understand it from your deliberations, that's not common, but it was several on, obviously, on the vote of your group that be a statement for the world to know that here's where New Smyrna's values are. Did you find that in any other document somewhere else for another city, or did we think of it on our own?
It was a wholesale belief that that's something that's uniquely special about New Smyrna, and we felt that we should incorporate that in as part of our charter for now and forevermore to identify with our community as to what we believe what's a significant part of our culture, and that is arts and culture.
Got it. And on the charter review periodicity, was there a reason that you said, you used that exact language, that not greater than 10 years for review? I think the specific wording that I've read is, we will review this again not later than 10 years. What was the thought, what was the thinking there?
So we felt that things evolve in government, and we are appreciative of how the dynamic can change. Things can happen at the state level, county level, and local level. We thought by changing it from every 10 years to at least every 10 years, that the commission at any point in time from today up to 9 years and 11 months from now could decide to do another charter review. My sense is that we put a lot of effort, and there was a lot of thoughtful and goodwill went into it. I'd be remiss if I didn't think there might be a flaw somewhere that you look at this a year from now and go, boy, wish we had picked up on this. You have the opportunity if you want to review it, because the language would state at least every 10 years, not stuck to every 10 years.
Got it. On salary, why did you decide to increase the salary?
So this was a really great, deep conversation that we are appreciative of what our servant leaders do and when they raise their hand and say, I'll serve in office. It was a hearty discussion. And we recognize it's not sitting in a workshop for a couple hours and sitting in the commission meeting for a couple of hours, maybe longer from time to time. It was recognized by the committee as a whole that each of you are at many events outside of this. And we felt that we are a city that is a role model for other cities, not only in Volusia County, but throughout the country, and that we should have leaders that are compensated to align with the duties you're performing. And we looked at, other municipalities of similar size, similar geographies, and sort of saw the numbers. Well, we felt tying it to something took away the guesswork. It didn't make you have to sit and have a discussion about your salary. And what we believe as a committee is that if it changes at the county level, that means something has evolved and changed within our community where it should accordingly be rolled down to our elected officials.
So as I understand the way it works today, and Madam City Attorney, square me away on this if I've got it wrong, the commission can vote and determine whether it wants to raise the salary. That's in our hands today.
Correct. The charter review actually made 2 recommendations. 1, to put the salary into the charter, and then 2, to increase it. So that is you'll see on that specific question, it's about putting it in the charter and raising it.
Got it. And if it goes in the charter, only the residents can vote to change the charter and change the salary. I mean, I've got the regular going up and going down with the county, but was the intent to put the determination on the compensation in the hands of the voters? It sounds like a good thing to me.
Well, what we were, the passion was around getting a model that was consistent, and the compensation was what you deserve. Where the hands of it lie, the committee would think that it's best to have it with some structure, whether or not that's in the charter or in an ordinance, where it's not something that you have to bring up and discuss and get the scrutiny of it. We feel you deserve to have what you should get to be compensated for the leadership in this wonderful town. That said, I think that if it's voted on by the residents and accepted, then as it changes and varies over time, then it's an automatic. If it doesn't, then it stays the way it is. It doesn't mean there's no change, if I understand it, in future salary adjustments.
Got it. Can you talk about why early? What were the advantages, the pros and cons? Why have a special election? Sounds like an expense that's optional. What do you get for going early?
Well, this is going to sound selfish on the committee's part, but it's not. So I'm going to put it out there. If we don't have a special election and have changes that go into effect next year, the body of work from this committee will not take effect for basically 4 years. And that's 40% of the duration of a 10-year charter review. So we felt if, we're going to make the investment, we made the investment of you all, scouring your areas, finding people who would be committed. People came in here, spent their time. If we're going to spend that amount of time, then we should go ahead and move it forward and let the people decide if the body of work is worthwhile. And if it is, why wait 4 years? Make it happen now.
One last one. Was the majority of your votes up and down each of these split, or were they? I think I saw most of them were not unanimous, but 10-1, 9-1, 8-1.
I think the term that you all use is like it was a super majority in everything that we voted on.
Very good. Thank you. Any follow-ups by any of my colleagues? Again, thank you very much. Appreciate the report and your hours and weeks of effort. Thank you very much.
Can I ask just one more question?
Why, sure.
Thank you. What is the urgency of having the charter review this year? There's no emergency. There's no huge flaw in it. And the existing charter says it will take place in 2026. So there has to be a trigger here. And unless there's something going on in the city of which I'm unaware that has created a crisis that means we need to push it through, and vote on it in '25, then I have to ask, what benefit is this to the community?
Well, I'm going to answer the question because we didn't specifically have that discussion as a committee. My sense is that you all made a decision to have the charter review. We honored your decision. We worked hard, rolled up our sleeves, and went after it. So if we were asked to do this and it was this time this year, why would we wait 4 years for the actions when things could change in that amount of time?
I
Thank you
personally
for
think we
answering
should
the
have
question.
abided by our current charter.
Thanks for answering the question. Commissioner McGurk?
Yeah, I just want to touch on that issue. We on this dais are the ones who created the charter, not the people we appointed.
Mm-hmm.
And you voted to do that, right? You voted for the charter review?
I don't know that I voted for the charter review. I did appoint 2 people to it.
Okay.
When
So
I lose, I accept.
My concern is that we're jumping on one of our members about a decision that they were never involved in and never made. They serve at the pleasure of us. So I'm not sure that question needs to be directed up here, not necessarily
Well, I would have thought
to
that it
them.
was a compelling reason for the charter review to operate on.
That's the question for the dais.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Billings? Okay, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am.
Appreciate
Thank
that,
you all.
sir.
Mayor, just one
Yes, ma'am.
clarification. There were a lot of meetings, and it's hard to get to every single one. But they did talk about term limits and specifically did not include it. So perhaps the facilitator will be able to expound upon that, but it was discussed.
Okay, very good. With that, then, Ms. Boyer, if there's anything that we didn't already cover, I don't want to be repetitive and do the whole thing over again. If there's anything else, we're anxious to hear what you have to say, ma'am.
Sure, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Nice to see you all. Not seeing you on TV.
Just your name and
legally.
record, name and
Sure.
address for the record. That'd be
Susan
great.
Boyer, the facilitator for the Charter Review Committee. So thank you, Mr. Billings. He did a great job in going over the items, so I'm not going to go back over that. I do just want to point out a couple of things. Attached to the Charter Review report, which I think you all received a copy of, there is, for your information, I think we find it helpful given some of the questions you've asked. There is a kind of a spreadsheet here. You have 2 of them from me. One of them was attached to the Charter Review document, and it goes through each one of the items that has been discussed by the Charter Review Committee, and it tells how they voted, what the vote was, 9-1, 8-2, whatever it was. And it gives you some ideas on the reasons that they proposed the modification and the reason to not make the change. So there's the pros and the cons. So you have a column of that in this document. So that may help answer some of the questions that you all had of Mr. Billings. It's here in this document as well. In addition, handed out tonight, I was asked as it related to, could I provide some information as it related to benefits to the other local officials within Volusia County. There is a typo in here. I'll come back to that. So what it does here is it says to you, it says what the pay is for the mayor, the pay is for the commission or council members in each jurisdiction. Do they receive health insurance, dental insurance, FRS contributions, some other retirement? As you see here, Daytona Beach provides a 457 plan. Do they provide life insurance? And then there's some other information in that other column on additional benefits that they may provide. Maybe they provide insurance for dependents, some of them don't. For example, if you look at DeBerry, it says that per their city charter, the commission and mayor's salary is increased annually by the CIP, October 1 through, so their last increase was October. Their increase coming up will be October 1 of 25. The increase will be 2.9%. So there's some additional information in that column that'll also answer some of those questions that you were asking, Mr. Billings, as it related to how they're handling different things. If you go to the second page, they're in alphabetical order, you'll see the city of New Smyrna Beach, the pay for the mayor, it should say $27,189.24. And for the pay for the commission members, it should say $20,329.06.
So those are, I'm not quite sure how those got goofy, but that would be the correct numbers for that. So this pretty much goes through every single in Volusia County so you can see what they offer and what you offer. The last 2 pages of that handout from tonight, it shows, the first one shows the estimated population for county and cities in the state of Florida. This is just Volusia County, and you can see New Smyrna Beaches is highlighted in yellow. It's your current estimated population back in April 1 of 24 was 32,542. The estimated change from 20 to 24 was 2,400 people. So you can kind of see how New Smyrna is growing compared to your cities around you. And then the last piece of information that was handed out was just a piece of information I thought you all would find interesting, which it is the rank of the top 100 cities in Florida by percent change of population. I think when you're looking at some of the changes that you all are looking at making in your charter, it is important to understand what the change in your population is and how rapidly that is or is not happening. You will see that in the top 100, there are 6 cities in Volusia County, and New Smyrna is actually the lowest one at number 96. So you're 96 out of 100 of the top 100 cities in Florida. That is from the University of Florida's Bieber report. So from 20, and it's the Florida Estimates of Population 2024. So that's their most current version that they have available at this time. So those are some of the items. I do want to commend the Charter Review Committee. I think you all recognized it, and I think I really, truly appreciate that. They did great work. 11 people is a very, very large group of people to get to come to consensus. They worked nicely together. We didn't get into it, but maybe once or twice. But they tried to appreciate everybody's opinion and take that into consideration. And I would be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Billings went over pretty much everything, so I don't want to repeat that.
Any questions for Ms. Boyer? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you for this chart comparing our salary and benefits to other cities so we can put ourselves into context. And we need to obviously figure out if we're that much more special than all our colleagues, but thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Yes.
Anybody else? Thank you very much for your weeks of work and for your final report and for your stewardship.
Sure. You had a
Sorry,
question,
I was
Carrie.
looking
I
at
got
some
this.
items. Did you point out the commission salary, the corrections to the?
Yes, I did.
She did.
I
She
read
did.
off the
She got that
number.
right.
Yes, that was I'm not quite sure how that got a little goofed
All
up.
right. Thank you
Anyway,
very
but
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you
ma'am.
all very much.
So before we do much more, maybe we have just a robust conversation about what we've just heard and seen. Lots of decisions to make at the voting time when we vote, but just maybe some remarks in the general, and then we need to go item by item to make sure we appreciate and accept the wording that is proposed. Should we vote in a later time to send this to the public? So in other words, we're gonna hedge the bet and make sure that we are prepared. There may be some of these that don't go to the public. We may vote as a body that says, nope, we're not going to bring that one to the public. But should we bring each of these to the public, wording has got to be done, and there's some lead time that the staff and the legal team will need. So let's start with just general discussion about the process. And if you have any thoughts or ideas or observations, it'd be great to hear. Vice Mayor.
Well, I have a reminder that this commission has the option to accept all the suggested changes, accept some of the suggested changes, accept none of the suggested changes, and add additional changes. And we want to remember that the charter is very difficult to change, and that procedures don't belong in the charter, they belong in ordinances. So, for example, there's a procedure about annexation in the charter. It really doesn't belong there because you want to be able to change it. And so there's a few procedures that, since we've opened up the charter, I think it would be a good time to take procedures out of the charter. And yeah, so that's my overall take on the whole charter revision. I feel like we're missing an opportunity to do some work that needs to be done. And that would also, the procedures would also include pegging salaries to the county council. What if next week Volusia County decided to pay their chair and their council people $5 a week? Well, we'd have to take 75% of that, wouldn't we? So, so we really want to think about putting something concrete, a procedure, or any of that into the charter. And I'm sorry that this was not discussed more during the charter review, but I think that's an important thing to consider. Thank you.
You betcha. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. So,
Point of order? Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the salary.
Supervisor of Elections has a comment.
Sorry. When you're talking about the salary for it being tied to the county council, I just was asking if you realize that the people of Volusia County voted back in 2002 for the county council chair to be paid 60% of the state allowed salary, and the councilmen were paid 50% of that salary. So it is tied to the state numbers. So in essence, that's what this would be also, is tied to that.
Thanks for the background. Appreciate that. Commissioner McGurk.
so let me start by saying that the conventional wisdom amongst the charter is don't fix what's not broken. It's really not a document that you want to get into and manipulate often. I think the charter that we did previous to this one, it had been far over 10 years, which was what was recommended. And I believe by talking with people from the past that the reason it took so long to do another charter review was because there was not a perception that there was much wrong with it. 5 years ago, we decided to do a charter review. And we did a pretty extensive charter review. A lot of people involved, a lot of time, a lot of energy. Some good things came out of that, and some not so good things came out of that. And one of the reasons that we wanted another charter review within 5 years is because we did such an extensive change to the charter. And now we're reflecting back on some of the things that, well, maybe those weren't the best kind of changes. And there's a couple of things in here that are addressing some of the items that are perceived to be a mistake. So my goal today, and with this charter, is I don't want to get in and manipulate this document extensively. I support going out up to 10 years. The city commission does not have to wait 10 years or 20 years. Or if the city commission perceives a significant problem, the city commission can always have a charter review committee at any time with a majority vote. So with respect to certain, with what the Charter Review Committee has set forward, a 4-year term as mayor, you know, that's one of the most greatly debated topics in New Smyrna as far back as I can remember. And as far as I can tell, it's 50-50, you know. The idea is that you can throw out a majority every 2 years if they're that bad, if they're that terrible. As far as I know, it's never happened. Certainly, it might have happened by coincidence if it did, but the city has never been in such peril that they threw out a majority at a single time, at a single election. We are one of the few cities left with a 2-year mayoral term. So I'm comfortable either way. And again, let me stress that the voters are going to decide this. This is not us up here deciding this. The commission salary, boy, is that not the third rail? That's the third rail, giving us a raise. You know, I have a thought on that. The people will decide that. It is unlikely that the people will vote for the raise. It's just the nature of the job. We don't get this job for the money, that's certain. And whatever raise, if the voters are inclined to give us a raise, it's not that big of a raise. It's not a big difference maker. My idea of talking about a raise is you make the job at a competitive rate where you can actually attract a lot of more people who can actually serve. I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm just saying if you wanted to get into a discussion about pay for one of these jobs, open it up so people can actually live and support themselves on a livable salary supporting a family. Now, historically, that has never happened, but I will tell you this. If you did that, you would then see a lot of different people able to run in an election to try to serve their city. But in terms of this one, the residents, the citizens will decide that. And if history is any judgment on that, they will very likely decline it. I enjoy the historic preservation, arts and culture added to the charter. You got to be careful. The charter is not necessarily where a lot of that is supposed to be, but we did add that. We added that 5 years ago, and I think that without doing too much of it, it has a great place in the heart of the charter to always remind those after us the direction that we wanted the city to be in and going in the future. So my goal here is do no harm, and I think that the Charter Review Committee did a great job at bringing forward a number of different things. I will address term limits. No secret that I'm the longest serving commissioner here. Yeah, that's right. I'll have served 16 years at the end of my current term. And this is what I tell people. If you create term limits, you're taking away pure democracy. You see, we have a citywide vote in this town. We can't gerrymander districts. So if you're going to have term limits, you usually have districts that you can gerrymander. It's not a citywide vote. And that's what makes this unique. So taking away anybody's ability to elect who they want at the citywide vote is in my eyes, a loss of democracy, a loss of the true election process. So we don't have districts to gerrymander. And that's what makes this job so great. And anybody can serve at the will of the people at any time. And guess what? And if someone's doing a good job, if they want to keep serving, it's up to the people to decide whether or not that person continues to serve. And I would very much hate to take that away from our people. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have to say.
Appreciate your comments, for sure, as the historian of the group, longest serving. Commissioner Perrine.
Thank you. So I have a few things. My thoughts are the last charter review board that we had 5 years ago, those tweaks were needed, and I believe this one, the tweaks were needed. I like that we have checks and balance. in this review process, because I'm not sure the thought process behind some of the things that were put behind then, but it makes us question those things with the new board, and I like that process. We have somebody that's been up here 16 years, he just said, so he carries wisdom with that. And I like that. And then you have us that have been around less than that. And I like that as well. So the things that I were perplexed about is doing all or none. I kind of like the itemized version of it. For example, I don't really know why we're at a 2-year mayor term when all these other cities are at 4 years. And I've been out there in the weeds trying to campaign, and it's exhausting. So it's not about which mayor is up here, because that is going to cycle out and in, but it's the work they have to do when the rest of us don't do that. And if you sit up here, every election cycle, we hear things up here, and this isn't a negative thing, but they can campaign from up here, and I hear it, and sometimes it's frustrating. And I hear things that they're pitching to that normally they wouldn't do that, and I don't like that. That's annoying to me when they cater to special interest groups, and I'd rather us all be up here and do our jobs and do what's best for 32,000 people and not for a few special interest groups. So that hasn't been mentioned, but it does take that element out of it if we're all on a 4-year process. With the salary, I've made it known that I'm not rerunning, so I'm going to be voting on this, and it doesn't impact me. But it does impact the next person that's sitting in the seat. And I assure you, we spend hours and hours. I've heard a couple of people say, oh, you're just part-time. You know, that $18,000 you guys make is adequate for a part-time wage. No, it's not. And we need to attract good, qualified people. And that is important. And none of us are up here for the money. But it's a nice token to say, hey, we're taking us out of that equation. We don't vote on our own raise. We're tying it to something that allows us to take that out. So a lot of these things that that this charter review group did actually made sense to me. And the historic preservation, something new came up from that too. When that was developed a few years ago, the protection was put in that it was going to be a local overlay, and there was a 90% pushback on that. The property owner rights and the property owners didn't want that. So there's another change that needed to be done. So I think all of these things are very valid, and we need to look at them individually, because I would hate to see the whole thing denied just because there's one or two parts of it that somebody doesn't like. So I would like to see this all to go to the ballot individually by line item.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Commissioner Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am for voting for each provision, not all at once. I'm for voting for line by line. Secondly, I think the mayor's term should be 4 years, not 2. And I wouldn't mind a special election, but I would be concerned about turnout in a special election. So then I have questions about, well, if we do decide to do a special election, would that be on the what the citizens would vote for too, a special election, or would we decide that?
We would decide that.
We would decide that.
So the question was, would the citizens decide that? No, the commission would decide.
Okay, so I asked the question at a previous meeting, if we had a special election, is it already budgeted? And Sharon, you told me it was budgeted. It's a special election is already budgeted in the city budget. And I think the number's around $50,000, you know? And what is going through my head is that the way Kevin has, our city manager has found funds that were not accounted for to the tune of millions of dollars. To me, if we decide to do a special election and it costs $50,000, it costs $50,000. And my own personal preference is to always do something sooner rather than later. But again, the reason I'm talking about this is I haven't really decided yet. I'm just thinking about all these factors that go into it. Except for the 4-year term, I do totally agree with that. I think the city clerk should report into the city manager. That seems to make sense to me. Regarding the salaries, I'm uncomfortable with tying it into another governmental body. I'm just uncomfortable with that. If our salaries are X and the citizens want to give us a little raise, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I mean, when I decided to run for office, the first thing I didn't ask myself was, how much does it pay? I mean, to be honest with you, if part of the compensation was a company or a city car and our salary got cut in half, that would be fine with me. You know what I mean? I mean, we take a lot of time traveling to different places, talking to different people, and that is a big part of what I do. And it you know, puts a lot of mileage on your bod and your car. So, you know, I kind of agree with Jason. I mean, if it's on the ballot, if I was a citizen, I'm not voting for a raise for commissioners. And as far as a living wage, I guess that's how to put it, for a commissioner, I don't want a living wage for a commissioner. I want somebody who has a lot of money and has the wisdom of the ages inside him, and he wants to serve his community, and that's why he runs for office. Not somebody who needs an extra buck, you know? You can go work at Flagler Tavern for an extra buck, so. I think that's about it.
Thank you. I'm at the tail end here. I must differ from my colleague, Mr. McGurk. I am in it for the money. $6.11 an hour based on the time I put in. So I'm just thrilled with that. And so, Brian, if you hang around a long time, you'll get that. On the raise, it may not attract another person. We've heard a variety of people opine about that. Where I was it may not attract anybody, but it might do something to not eliminate somebody that was considering it, that was of a younger age, that is maybe very involved in things in addition to work, said, where will I spend my extra time? I would go into, let me go into this work with the city. So I thought maybe it could be an incentive to attract those that had ruled it out. Certainly not as it would not eliminate people, but it might attract people. It would attract people that generally are eliminated because they don't have the bandwidth or time and they're busy earning money. That's where I was. My predecessor left in part for that reason as well. This effort is reprised from an effort 5 years ago, and many of you are in the crowd who served there. The previous charter review was 40 years earlier. Can you imagine the body of work that months and months and months that those folks endured to go through this? Great news about the city government is nonpartisan. So this is not a red and blue conversation. It's a conversation about what's best for New Smyrna. And that's what we stand for. It's what's best for New Smyrna. And it doesn't matter what party you're assigned to, everybody gets to vote every time for your commissioners and your mayor. Term limits. On a city side, as Commissioner McGurk said, on a city of our size, you may be eliminating the opportunity to find people that want to do this type of work. There is a way to term limit. It's called an election. You can vote people out, and that's the limit. That's the limiter, voting them out. I have no interest in adding to the work that has already been done by the Charter Review. That was their job. They completed it. So opening another chapter and having other conversations about stuff that has not been considered by the Charter Review, I have no interest in doing any more of that work. That'll be for us to decide, but my personal view is that. I believe that Ms. Martin served on that same committee 5 years ago and worked for months and months and then opposed the proposal that the group had put forward. So that you were proposing,
because of
that's fine. I'm
provisions
talking when you can talk when it's your time. And you went first, as a matter of fact. So your record's clear. You opposed it last time, and from your comments today, I'm sure you're winding up to oppose it again.
Me.
Soon as I'm done, we'll see if anybody wants a second round to talk before we go into the wording. Anyway, Charter Review Committee, excellent job. Appreciate the work. McGurk's right, can't be gerrymandered with and shouldn't be done lightly. It is a constitutional level document. I've asked the city attorney in reference to Mr. Blueback's question about what other documents beneath that, the comp plan and LDRs, and they are separate and not necessarily guided by the city charter. So I was worried that as we consider LDRs and we consider the comp plan, should this be the first and then we have to, in order, go to the second and third? I'm assured by the attorney that's not the case. And those are the comments I have. Anybody want to go again, round two? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would think that my wisdom from learning the pitfalls of the last charter would put me in potentially in a better position to analyze this one. So one could consider that. Number two, I didn't get the memo where we were all going through all of them, each of us sequentially. I thought they were going to be broken up by item because that was what was suggested by the workshop. So while I don't believe I'll make any progress, unsurprisingly or not, I love the arts and culture. And I would think that since, and nobody has yet explained to me the urgency, why we have to do it now. If there's no urgency, what is the benefit to the community for rushing this through? The Charter Review Committee has not been disbanded, and we would have the opportunity to make a couple of other minor tweaks. For example, the current charter says that the chief of police has to attend every city commission meeting. What if he's sick? A small thing, police chief or his designate, his or her designate. The last charter was primarily promoted by saying that they had put gender neutral language in it. That was the big statement about it. I don't think that really was a great indicator of everything that had gone into it. But I will tell you, I love arts and culture. I am distressed from historic going from mandatory to encouraged, because I think that deprives the property, the owners around that property of their property rights. So that's my statement right now.
Okay, that's your second time. Anybody else want a second bite? Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed a few details that I did need to cover, give my opinion on. I'm not for a special election. I think that the cost is unnecessary. I've spoken to the city attorney. As I understand that, if whatever's on the general election next year in November, whatever passes is what the then electeds would be able to serve under. So we would not have to wait an additional 2 or 4 years for another election. Or does that make sense?
Correct. So the what you miss by not doing a special election is the primary item. I mean, these other items could be changed January 1, 2026. The one with the term limits, you would not be forced to wait, or I'm sorry, not the term limits, the 2-year to a 4-year term for the mayor. That could take effect on the November 26 election. So whoever's elected mayor, if that question passes, that person would get the 4-year term.
Right. Okay, so the only item on the, that being proposed would be the mayor would still have to run in a primary, because obviously we would not have voted, the residents would not have voted on it by then. Is that what, if I understand correctly, everything else could be implemented that would be relevant after the general election?
So you have, the primary, then there's the salary, which would just be delayed. Historic preservation.
Right.
The cultural arts, and then reviewing it at least every 10 years.
Right, okay. So under that understanding, I'm not for the special election simply due to the cost. It's not necessary. I also think that this should be an item vote. Each proposal should have its own vote, because each one in its own way is very important. Primary and going to the general election. So this is what I think was probably the biggest mistake that we changed in the charter 5 years ago. We are one of the few cities who went backwards on that. And for the longest time, we were 50% plus one. And as the supervisor of election has pointed out, no one who has gotten 50 plus one in a primary has lost an election. Now, I understood the tempo of the people, and I understood why this was brought forward. And there were some very valid points made during that argument for it. But what I think gets missed is, by the general public that actually is not intimately involved in elections, is the enormous amount of time and money and energy that is spent. And I don't mean just by the person running. The people, there's not a lot of people who get very involved in elections. We're all very opinionated. There's not a lot of people who actually get involved in an election, help someone get elected, donate their time, and more importantly, donate their money. And I got to tell you that the worst part of this job is having to ask people for money and spend resources, their resources, friends' money on something that may not be necessary, their time and their money. And it's very difficult. What the general conventional wisdom in an election is, you're going to run a primary, you're going to get donations. You win in the primary, you go to the general, you're going to now start over again and ask for a lot more money and time from those few people who are willing to do that. And when I say few people, when you look at the population of voters of close to 20,000, and you look at the donation list and of who actually contributed to a campaign, it's very, very small as a percentage. Well under 1% of the population actually gets involved enough to donate time or money in a campaign. And it's a brutal thing to have to ask people who've already given you money to ask for more money. They're usually very willing. But it's a terribly wasteful thing. It also requires more money because so few people get involved. You're asking more money from fewer people. Then people start saying, well, look at this person, look at that person. They donated so much money. They must be their own special interest in a way. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not necessary to do that. And like I said, I understood the reasons They made some valid points, but I think this is one of the most important things on this ballot, is changing that over, where if you get 50 plus 1, and that's why we wanted to review it 5 years out. We've been through 2 elections, and it's very clear to me and many people who are involved in elections that this was not the best decision that could have been made. And so I'm very happy to see this one on the ballot. Someone says something about mileage. I just want to go on record that for almost 14 years, I had no idea we get reimbursed for mileage, so I wonder if that's retroactive. I had no idea. Thank you. That's all, man.
All right, we give McGurk a car. A follow-up? Yes, yes, ma'am.
I also want to elaborate that we don't collect mileage, or I don't. I'm sure some people could, but it doesn't make a huge impact. I think, speaking about the salaries, it is important that if that goes on the ballot, that people know what that is, because if you read social media, they think, oh my goodness, look at that raise, and they already think we make $100,000 a year. You know, they don't realize we make $18,000 or whatever that number was. I don't even know. I bring home, what, 600 and something every 2 weeks. So whatever that equates, you know, it's insignificant. We're not up here for that. One thing that we haven't mentioned that I would support a special election for is the city clerk responsibilities. We didn't address that, didn't have those needs probably in the last charter review tweaks. We have had a huge one, and our expenses came out this last year or two because of issues, and I feel like that could have been improved if the city clerk would have reported to the manager instead of us. There were just complications. I can't go into a lot of the details, don't want to, but the money that we would have saved on that alone would have probably paid for that special election. Mr. Cowper is here. He oversees. He has great process improvements. He has great objectives for each of his employees. We brought him in. We gave them a raise because they deserve it. And he does a fabulous job with the budgets, and I can't say enough, and he will do a fabulous job overseeing our city clerk. If we waited 2 years on that, then what's the point? I don't get that. That's too far out. We haven't set objectives. We have some, but he is always tweaking the processes and changing people around based on needs. If there's a department that has less revenues, and he looks at the salaries in relationship to those, as most people would, and he has moved people around who reports to the city commission or who does work for us. He's changed job duties. We don't know that. We're not allowed to tell any city employee what to do at all. We don't oversee any city employee except for these two right here and the city clerk. So I think that alone is a huge incentive to do a special election, but that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, ma'am. Everybody's had a second go at it. It's still $6.11 an hour for me, and I assure you I'm worth every penny of that. But we won't belabor it. As Jason said, we want to put it, the idea from that I got from Mr. Billings' work and the committee's work was put it in the hands of the residents. Let the residents decide. And now it's in the commission's hands. And so the idea was let the residents decide, and that therefore putting in the charter does allow that to get modified. City Attorney, square me away one more time. All of these, whether the election's in 25 or 26, all of these would take effect. The only one we'd miss out on is the 50 plus 1.
Correct. So the mayoral term could take effect November 2026. And then depending on when we set the others to take effect, normally we do January 1 of the following year because it gives you time to get it sent off to the state. But I did find an AG opinion directly on point regarding the mayor's, the mayoral term. So generally, I would say January 1, 2027, but with the specific ballot language on the primary, or on the mayoral term, you just make it clear that it starts on November 2026.
Right. And I'm not sure the committee knew that going through before you got your Attorney General's recommendation. Yes, ma'am. Just a second,
Okay, well,
please. Just a second, please. After I finish, you can go for a third time. So I'm not sure that it's worth the special election if you get just about everything, except the 50 plus 1%. And now, clarify if you don't mind, ma'am, it's for all elections, the 50 plus 1, not just
Moving forward, yes.
for any
commissioner.
commissioner elect. Okay, it's not
Correct.
just, okay, very good.
Yes.
So many opportunities to personalize this for Fred Cleveland. I am delighted to serve as your mayor. And when the citizens say, we've had enough of you, or my family says I've had enough of that, then I will be in the cheap seats cheering for the next guy or lady. So, for the record, I just want to get that out there. Third time, yes, ma'am. What
Just
else?
a question on clarity. We're using special election, and I wonder if some of us are thinking about special election meaning a vote by mail, or are we talking about the November 2025 election? Because that would be a special election for us. So I'm just looking for clarity when we're talking about these two things and making sure that we're all talking about the same thing.
So the special election in November of 2025, we do have the option between doing it by mail or doing it at the polls.
Thank you. Are you clear now?
Clearer.
Oh, okay. And I'm sorry that Lisa Lewis left, because she could probably answer that perfectly. Okay. Without further ado, let's go into the review of the ballot titles and questions for each of the 7 items. I think the city attorney is looking for feedback on each of these draft ordinances. Madam Attorney, would you please proceed with reading the title of the ballot and on to the how the phrasing is. Point of order. Supervisor of Elections. If we had a special election, Ms. Martin's question was, how can that be conducted? Can it be conducted in person? Can it be conducted by mail? What are the options?
That wasn't my question.
You can have a regular election.
She
where you-
says that's not her question.
Okay,
Let me make sure
Okay.
you get her
We
question.
do not have a regular election in 2025, so if we did have one then for the ballot, it would be a special election for New Smyrna Beach.
That is correct.
Thank you. If we we do an all by mail vote, that would also be a special election.
Correct.
And so when we're talking about special elections, I'm curious, are we talking about sending out ballots in September and doing all vote by mail, or are we talking about being in the November election when, say, polling sites might be open?
If you do it this year, it's either or. It's whatever you choose. I gave both options on my estimate, where you could have a special regular election where you vote by mail if people have requested them. You have early voting if you so choose, and you can have the polls open. Or you can do it as an all-mail ballot, since it is just questions.
And my thing, I brought it up only because I didn't know we were all on the same page by what we meant by special election.
Yeah, special
you.
is your own
So my
election.
question would be, when Carrie talks about special election, are you talking about the November 25 polling place? Or are you talking about outside that and just mailing out ballots?
Whatever the commission's desire.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, they're both considered special elections. It's just the way you want to conduct it.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
That's really going to confuse the people.
Oh, yeah. But Commissioner Martin's clear on it now. All right. On to the readings, City Attorney.
Yes, I think we could move relatively quickly through these. The first one I have in my stack is the 4-year mayoral term. I have added language to it while we've been sitting here, but the title would say Charter Amendment Changing the Term Length of Mayor of the City of New Smyrna Beach. And that is exactly 15 words. The question would state, shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt revised charter sections 2.02 and 3.06, changing the term length of the mayor from 2 years to 4 years, beginning with the November 2026 election? If anyone thinks there's a better way to state that, I'm here for it.
Any inputs?
The next one I have is regarding the primary. The title would be Charter Amendment Allowing a Candidate to be Elected in a Primary if Majority Vote Obtained. That's also exactly 15 words. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt revised Charter Section 3.05, allowing a candidate to be elected in a primary election if the candidate receives 50% plus 1 vote of the votes in the primary election? Any concerns?
Any concerns or wording offered, changes?
Okay. Third one I have is City Clerk. This title is 14 words. Charter Amendment Changing the City Clerk from a Constitutional Officer to a Department Head. I see a typo. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt revised charter sections 2.03, 2.05, 4.01, 4.02, 4.03, and 4.04 to change the office of City Clerk from a constitutional officer to a department head of the city manager?
Any wording changes or recommended? Just a point of clarity, she still remains the city clerk. That's still her
Correct.
title.
And the duties are provided for in the charter, still remains the election official, all of that.
Could constitutional versus charter officer? Because in the
same
charter,
thing.
it's referred to as the charter officer.
Okay, I can
And here
change it
says
to charter.
Constitutional.
I can change it to charter officer.
Any objections? All right, that's a good one.
All right, the next one is regarding the commission salary. The title, exactly 15 words. Charter amendment setting the salary of the city commission by charter and increasing the salary. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt revised charter section 2.11 to set the salary of members of the city commission by charter and to increase such salary to 75% of the Volusia County Council chair for the mayor and 75% of the mayor's salary for the zone commissioners?
Any wording ideas or changes or thoughts on that?
Okay. Historic preservation. Charter amendment prioritizing historic preservation instead of mandating action. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt revised charter section 6.03 to prioritize historic preservation in the city rather than mandating certain actions related to historic preservation?
Any inputs? That was largely debated by the committee. So any further changes?
Okay, another one, charter amendment establishing arts and culture as priorities for the City of New Smyrna Beach. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach adopt a new charter section 6.05 to establish arts and culture as a priority for the city? Title is exactly 15 words.
I have an idea on that one. Could we have it say cultural arts? Does that
Yes.
change the?
I was going to suggest that, but yeah.
Okay. Rather than culture and arts, cultural arts. Does that eliminate anything that we're currently doing that the committee tried to? Okay.
No.
Oh,
So
but
I'll
there's a typo in
revise.
that. Did you see?
Yeah, and I'll also revise the language in the charter so that it's referencing cultural arts instead of arts and culture. Okay, and last one. Charter amendment mandating that the charter be reviewed at least once every 10 years. Shall the City of New Smyrna Beach revise Charter Section 7.03 to mandate that the charter be reviewed by an advisory committee appointed by the City Commission at least once every 10 years?
Any inputs on that? So just for clarity, it currently is allowed to be reviewed how often by the commission?
Anytime. So even with your change, You still can review your charter at any time by ordinance or by petition. So even though that says at least every 10 years, you could do it every single year if you wanted to. You could do it, however often you chose.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. And so when we come back again, give me the date on that.
So August 12th will be first reading of these ordinances. The next step from legal's perspective is we'll have to go through, fine tune the language. We have to get it translated into Spanish and finalize these. It'll be the August 12th agenda usually publishes August 6th. So that would be first reading. And then the second reading public hearing would be on the 26th, August 26th.
There'd be a vote at both, or the vote at the second reading?
Normally, we would not have a vote at first reading, but I would encourage, if there's comments and things like that, to please make them so that we can make sure it's ready to go on August 26th. Should we proceed with the November special election?
Right, and so will that be considered at both meetings?
Whether it's at the which portion?
A special or regular, will that be considered? Will we have the opportunity at both those meetings to discuss?
Yes, I would prefer that it's discussed and decided by the first meeting so that the ordinance is correct for adoption.
Properly written. I got it. Okay. Okay. Anybody else with a comment or a follow-up question? To the Supervisor of Elections, thank you for taking time out of your evening for coming and sharing your expert views and experience with us. It's really, really great that you've decided to come right here to one of your 16 cities. Thank you very much. To the entire Charter Review Committee, Mr. Billings, you and your team, thank you so very much. To the staff, the city staff, both the clerk's office and the legal team, for doing the lion's share of the behind-the-scenes work none of us will ever know about to get it ready and prepared. Thank you. And to our facilitator for delivering the mail in a timely manner. Thank you very much, Susan. Appreciate that. Mr. Manager, any closing remarks, sir?
No, sir.
Madam Attorney?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk?
No, not this time.
We're adjourned.
Okay.